Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Real Hero Show. Nick here with you, along with our friend and guest, Shane. Shane, how you doing today, man?
Good. How are you? 3-day weekend, so just hanging out, not doing a whole lot. My Longhorns got the win yesterday, and I was at the
Ooh,
game, and that was good.
nice,
But
very
yeah,
nice. Hey, college football's back
I know
in full swing, yeah?
every Saturday is scheduled for the next, couple of months for me.
Yeah, it's great. I'll try and catch some more this season. See it all turns out, and 3-day weekend for us, so it's very good time to relax and have the day off tomorrow and catch up on some chores and some much needed R&R and some binge watching. I'm sure we'll go down tomorrow, and weather providing, may try and get some sun. Who knows? But we're here to talk about the newest episode of Ted Lasso. Which we I think we both have some interesting things to say in regards to this. So let's go ahead and just dive right in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So I think one of the biggest points of this episode that obviously has continuing with this trend is Nate. Nate's still on this high, right? This 15 minutes of fame that he gets, and it's a feel good feeling for him, right? Like he's finally broken out of his little corner. He's getting some confidence going to him, but we've also seen him act like quite the asshole, and we see a lot more of it this episode, which you had said in our group chat that it was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's painful to watch.
Yeah, it was like these cringe moments where I'm like, man, like I kind of hate to see it because it was just so unwarranted, the way he does it and the reasonings behind it. And I'm glad by the end of the episode we think it's squashed, but it's not. Not. I'm like, man, come on, Nate. Like his arc is getting dragged out more, which I hope by the end of this episode, or sorry, this season, it comes to some sort of actual resolution. And I thought it was great the fact that that Coach Beard, steps in as he is observing in Beard fashion. I have to say, I know Corey's not here for this episode, but Corey reminds me a lot of Beard, of Coach Beard. Yeah.
Is it because of the beard?
Not only that, but it's just some of his comments that he makes, and he might not talk a lot on the show, but when he does, it's always, I guess, something that is like meaningful in a way. And just maybe just that part of Coach Beard. Otherwise, he's got the Roy kind of attitude.
Also, I think maybe I need to grow a mustache at some point, because then you can be Roy, he can be Beard, I can be Ted.
I do have a lot of hair.
Maybe
yes.
For the finale, we'll have a great surprise for y'all.
Yeah, perhaps. But yeah, so I have an idea of why Nate's sort of acting this way. But what is your take on Nate's behavior in this episode?
Yeah. So first off, we kind of predicted that this would be a major point way back when, even in the premiere, where we said the first person we saw was Nate, his eyes, in the very first shot of the season. So we knew something big was happening with him.
Right.
But it's been dragged out a lot. Like he was just an asshole for the first 3 or 4 episodes. And then he kind of got better, and he wasn't an asshole for a couple episodes. And now he's back in full force. I think there's a lot of things they're trying to say with it. It's clear that he's not getting the right validation from his dad, and has never gotten the right validation from his dad.
Yes.
And so that's another daddy issues thing that this show continues to harp on.
Push on. Yeah.
It is almost the exact Jamie scenario.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in a minute, because I think that's not unintentional. I think that's very intentional.
I'd have to agree.
But he clearly hasn't gotten the validation. He makes the big coaching decision and gets all that validation, and he's just on this high, and he's feeling good about himself.
Yeah.
And then he reads that one little tweet that just sets him off, and it's clear that he is very insecure.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's that saying that most bullies have been bullied, and this is clearly what's happening with him. He's very insecure. He's never been given positive reinforcement his entire life, and it's all hitting him at once. So he's just gotten too big for his britches. And I really think my prediction, a lot of people, I was reading Reddit and Twitter and stuff, and they were thinking like, Ted needs to sit this guy down. And I think it's going to be more than that. Because Beard sat him down and, be better, and had his little Batman moment where he disappeared.
Yeah, it was great.
But so as I mentioned, it's Jamie. It's Jamie's story, almost to a T. And I really wonder if there's going to be some kind of connection between them, because in the last season, Jamie was bullying Nate, and then Nate is now bullying other people. And it seems like Jamie has kind of made this redemption arc. And so if they can connect and talk about that, I think that would be super powerful. And I hope that's where they're going with it. I think that would be just a great combination.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too, because that little banter between he and his dad at the table with the newspaper, just brings him back down, and from what his dad says, and it's seeking that fatherly approval, and then he continues to listen to the great, radio talk, the articles. Should he get his own team? Is he ready? The assistant coach comes through, the team. I thought it was very interesting how the team does a little surprise for him with the Wonder Kid jersey, and he's all smiling. And of course, after he makes an apology, and they forgive him. But as soon as he finds out it's the towel boy, right? What he used to be, you could see it in his facial expression, like he didn't like it as much. And then he said that low moment when he's just reading Twitter and just seeing the Twitter folk kind of bash him, which happens to everyone on Twitter. So it's just, don't take Twitter so seriously, and he goes off and into this kind of, I've never heard it referred to that as the boot room.
That was a new thing.
Yeah, and I was like, boot room? I guess that's maybe just the way the English folks over there say it, but kind of cool. And we don't see it take place, but we can just imagine him get right in front of I can't think of the guy's name, but
Colin, right?
Colin? Is it Colin as well?
I think it's Colin. Is it
the boot dude, the towel boy?
Yeah.
He gets right in his face, and just I could just imagine him like an inch away from him, in his face, and going you ever say this, do something like this again, it'll be your head. And
oh, sorry, Colin is the player.
Yeah, Colin's the player. But
Will, is it Will?
Maybe it is Will, actually. That might, I think it makes more sense.
Yeah, it's Will.
Okay, had
to Google it.
Yeah, so but we don't see it, and I think if we would have seen it, I think we probably would have.
He probably would have been crying.
Disliked Nate for doing this a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there's that cringe moment. I'm like, we don't see it, and the camera's just stuck on the doorway, and we see Nate storm out, and then we kind of see Will hold the jersey in his hands in the end, and I'm like, that's poor Will. He was trying to. It's the funny thing is he's trying to seek approval from Nate.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the same thing. Yeah, and Nate's too blind to see it, and I would like to see something where Jamie sees this going on as well, and however it happens, I hope they do a good job in connecting the dots here, but where it comes back to the fatherly approval, where Jamie says something like, he was trying to, my father treated me the same way, and I've done everything I can, I've tried to become the star player, to score the goals, be the team player, and even then it's not good enough. And maybe kind of feeling out how he gets through it, and maybe Sharon has helped Jamie deal with those issues.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, maybe Nate, you need to just go see the doc and really talk to her. And I don't think we necessarily need to see that. Even maybe 5 minutes worth of showtime, just so we can kind of see more of Nate talk about it, openly, not just to Sharon, but maybe to us as the audience. I think could be something. If we don't, that's not a big deal either. But it's I'm really curious to see how long this is going to continue on, and until it gets finally squashed. Because even Ted's like, Coach, did I miss something? Do I need to handle something? And Beard's like, nope, it's all good. Yeah. It's not all good.
Yeah, it was this whole episode was just so uncomfortable to watch. one of the more uncomfortable things that I've watched on television in a long time is where he's just blasting Colin. He's like,
dude,
"You're not a Picasso, you're a Holiday Inn art." I was like, Jesus,
no
dude.
Inspiration. Like, you a stand-up comic because I sat you last week. You're sitting this out. I'm like,
yeah,
damn, dude. Like, it's practice. It's
that's rough.
Team practice. No one needs to sit out. He's there to get better.
Right.
And you know, it's kind of like Coach Beard said, this was weird and personal.
Yeah.
And it really is. And we know why. Beard might not know why, but it's a problem. It is a big problem that I hope it kind of gets resolved by the end of the season. Now, I don't know if it goes the length and maybe Ted's like, "You're fired." I
could see it. Yeah,
I could see it happening.
It's like darkest just before the dawn kind of thing.
Because do you really need 4 coaches for a soccer team or a football team? Like, it's not like American football. I mean, you got the Roy Kent effect there, so I mean, it'd be interesting, you know. But
before we go to the next point, I want to bring up a line from the prior episode.
Yeah.
Which is where they talked about, like, you like meeting somebody's mom and it's like an instruction manual for figuring out why they're nuts.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing with Nate and his dad. Nate is acting exactly how his dad acts towards him. I think they're making a little on the nose statement right there, where it's like, you know, he's got parental issues, and so in his moments where he is kind of like that father figure, he is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I like the carry on quotes that we can continue to use and talk about and make these fair comparisons, right? So you know, kudos to the writing team for that. So talking a little bit more about tension, we see a little bit more tension come from Ted and the doc in her office multiple times.
Yeah, more uncomfortableness. I don't know what the right word is there, but man, when he's doing his bit and she's just like sitting there, it's like so awkward. Oh God,
it is. It's like I said before we went live here. There was part of me that started to get a little annoyed by him delaying. He's like, "Oh God, I already wasted 15 minutes." And I was like, "Yes, Ted, you're wasting actual film time of this episode. Please open up to Dr. Sharon. We're all curious as to what the hell drove you, to have this anxiety attack, the other night." And he leaves and, because he doesn't want to do this. And when he comes back the second time, we think that he might be onto something, but then we see him get a little heated. Yeah. Right. Calls your profession bullshit. You don't really care. Slams the door this time. And I really felt bad for Sharon. And I have to say, like, both me, my girlfriend and I agreed that the actor who plays Dr. Sharon, she portrays that role so well.
She's great. She's awesome.
She is absolutely what a great addition to this season, to the show. Even though she doesn't have a lot of screen time in it, whenever she does, it's just so well done. And when she has the third session, the third time rather, that Ted comes back, and she really explains that, I was offended. You really hurt my feelings with this, and she's interested in is the truth. And Ted still can't muster up enough to bring that to the table to her. So, whatever it is just really, really, really eating up Ted. And I wrote this down because I don't know why he keeps looking at the little bobblehead.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Like, and then because he knocked it, then there's another time he stops
and then he stops it.
And then he starts it again. He just always looks down at it. I'm like, there's something there.
Yeah.
From previous therapy that is reminding him, and he's afraid. And it might be some sort of like,
maybe
PTSD.
Had the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And he couldn't think about that. Maybe the therapist was like, "Oh, do you like this little bobble bird thing?" And then maybe Ted is a younger individual, and maybe therapy with his wife or ex-wife. that was there during those therapy sessions, and he just is like burned or ingrained into his memory, and that's like kind of triggering him almost,
Yeah.
But I don't know, what did you think about that?
So about this storyline in particular, and maybe I can talk a little bit about the Nate one as well, just as like taking a step back, looking at the whole season. I'll kind of spoil my like reaction to this episode because I didn't really love this episode. I felt like these storylines should have been a little bit more strategically placed throughout the season, because we're getting a really weird pacing in this season in particular, but especially like it was so apparent in this one.
Yes.
Where, the past 2 episodes have been super plot heavy and momentum going forward. And then we have this episode where you just pause everything. For example, you talked about how you were like annoyed by Ted coming back into the room 3 times.
Yeah.
What if you had spaced those 3 times out in prior episodes and we get to this moment? I feel like that would be a much more satisfactory or like satisfying way to introduce that story. And like, as you mentioned that, the bobble thing and the PTSD, like we're seeing a lot of things that we don't know why people are doing them. And we're more than halfway through the season. Like we need to pick this shit up. Like it needs to really start rolling downhill. It feels like they may have stuffed a little bit too much in, and like they're trying to converge all these plot points into one for like the big reveal episode. It might be next week. But because of that, we get like some weird like pacing. So like the example, and this is the third point we were going to talk, or the third narrative we were going to talk about, is Roy and Keeley, who this feels like a subplot that should have been in some other episode like earlier or something. It just feels like they just needed a problem for them to solve. And so they like introduce the problem and solve it. Like there were no hints of them being unhappy at all until this episode. And it's like, it just feels thrown in there as like we need something to happen with Roy and Keeley because these other 2 storylines haven't quite hit where we need them to. And rather than just throw them out of the episode and not talk about them, we'll just have something for them to do. And in this case, it was solve that problem. Yeah.
And looking back at previous episodes, right? Sure, they lived together, and their Christmas was, their sexy Christmas was derailed a bit. Didn't really go the way they planned it out. And granted, that episode wasn't supposed to be there anyway. But it sort of adds to, I guess, the plot. But it doesn't really fit with what happens in this episode, like you were just saying. And Roy was coaching kids football. Then he became a pundit for a little bit. Then he quits and then joins joins Richmond as a coach. And granted, sure, they work together, but this episode made it seem like they're there all the time. And of course,
we never got that.
I didn't really get that
sense.
vibe. Yeah. And it's just sort of, I thought it was ironic that she's watching Sex and the City, and the drama that is within that show, and kind of like what that episode was even saying about having a man's stuff and not wanting to go through. And here you got Roy reading the Da Vinci Code and being it's so short. The chapters just suck you in, And
that was great.
Yeah, and the Knights Templar, and I'm like, this is hilarious. And she's just like, shut up, and like just leave me alone. And I need some space for myself. And and how even Rebecca says that their relationship is great, and she wants a relationship like theirs. And that's when I was like, it's not everything, because he's always there. And again, like it did seem like a little bit of a filler problem.
Yeah. Or if it was going to be something that they were going to focus on it a little earlier, like plant those seeds of, maybe not everything is all rosy, and then like it all comes to a head later, rather than like, we had no inkling that they were unhappy at all. And we see them a lot in this season. It just felt like they needed something to have those characters kind of pause for a minute, so they throw them another problem.
Or I think what they could have done too is have like a seesaw effect where, you've got Higgins' relationship, his marriage in the middle, that's like the pillar that doesn't really need any work. But then you've got Roy and Keeley on one side, then you've got Rebecca and whomever on the other. And as Roy and Keeley's relationship is going great and is up, you got Rebecca and her lack of relationship on down. But maybe as Rebecca starts to find someone after she discovers it's Sam that she's talking to,
right.
but finds someone else that is actually worthy, as Roy Kent said in the first episode of the season, that's when we start to see these issues with Keeley and Roy, and then maybe it's Rebecca that says like, or Higgins that says, I'll give you some advice because here's how my wife and I have maintained a marriage for 20 plus years. We have our own independence. We have our own time to ourselves. And that's very true to any successful relationship in real life.
Yeah. No, I think the point they were making was totally valid. It just
absolutely
felt very out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And
it could have been better.
It felt like, I think I told this to you earlier, but it felt like 3 plots that should have been included in like an episode with a bigger plot narrative going through it.
Right.
Rather than all 3 of these lumped together where it's like nothing happened. They don't play a game. They don't advance that plot at all. It's fine to have character development. I encourage character development.
Absolutely.
But it was 3 character development with no story development arcs in the same episode. And that just like, it was just a little bit too bad. Like from a momentum perspective, it was too bad that all of those collided in the same episode.
Yeah, and in there's another theme that I wrote down here in my notes about that we see a couple times in the episode, the mentioning of the truth. Sharon says to Ted, "I just want the truth." Higgins tells to Rebecca, "Just say the truth."
The audience is like, "Give us the truth, please."
Yeah, you can't handle the truth. But then Keeley says the truth to Roy. Jamie says the truth to Roy on the field, and I thought that was a great moment because he's like "fuck" and just walks off, and I'm like, he's like, "Where's he going?" And
that was good.
But no, that was great, and same thing where Beard tells the truth to Nate, and people are seeking the truth, right? And it's Will's looking for truth from Nate, Nate's looking for truth from his dad, and it's just there's this. I love the underlying themes with this, and where it's not completely spelled out for us, but it's just something that we can also kind of take a step back and look at. And I think at some point we'll start to see more. We got to see some this episode, but the truth's got to come out about the banter trap between Boss Girl and Sam. So
yeah, it's been too long. I think that storyline has also gone far too long. Like they had them run into each other in this episode, but that was it. Like we predicted last episode, and we gave the writers the benefit of the doubt. We said they've done such a good job so far of resolving things in time before they get too stale. I think this is the part where this is the episode where they lost that trust from me a little bit. I think they don't realize that these narratives are stale by this point in the season, and they just keep pushing them forward. And it's like, just please, resolve something.
Yeah, it was too much of a tease to have them run into each other without actually catching a glimpse of one of the two of them having their phones open, being like, just kind of seeing like, oh my God, Sam's talking to Bosco right now. Boss Girl.
Maybe they end the episode with that or something, and then it's that cliffhanger, and I have to watch next episode.
And remember how I even said how maybe we'll Rebecca might hear something in passing.
Yes,
and
we had that moment.
We had that moment. They run into it. Not only that, but the entire team. I thought
it was going to happen, and I was like, Nick has totally called this, and then it didn't.
It didn't happen. I was upset. I was like, you guys, come on, man. Like, and not only that, but the entire team knows about this now.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe she got hit by a bus, and then of course the Dutch bluntness, maybe she's just not into the relationship anymore. But I was hoping maybe that's the moment where so-and-so walks in, like maybe it's Keeley, right? But Keeley is the one that has to break the news to Rebecca, like, hey, Bex, it's Sam. you don't want to hear this, but it's Sam. That's LDN 152. Sorry, but still that didn't even happen. So I really hope next episode they come to a conclusion on that, because I think the more they drag that out, the worse it's going to get, and the less important it's going to be. It's not going to have as much weight. And then when it finally happens, my concern is that we just won't care enough. And it's like, oh, they finally found out they're talking to each other.
Yep.
Anyway, what else happened in this episode?
I mean, I think we've covered most of it. Before we kind of review the episode and maybe talk a little bit about next week, because I read the synopsis for the next one. Yeah. I wanted to point out, like, one of the most hilarious things that happened in this episode was totally unintentional, where my wife and I were crying laughing, because in the very last scene where Roy is, not the very last scene, but the scene where Roy puts that bath on for Keeley, we have HomePods all throughout our house. And so when he says, hey, and I can't
Siri?
say the word. I got one right next to me. Play this playlist. It started playing some screamo heavy death metal all over our house. And we were just crying laughing, because it's this like sweet intimate moment, and we just get
amazing
all throughout our house. It was great.
Amazing. I thought it was a great scene too, but I want to keep it PG, but there is a little bit of a slippage there.
Oh, was there?
Yes.
I missed
that. I thought I saw the right slippage, but yeah, I think I'm not saying go back, but it's like a Family Guy moment, like hey Chris, did you see in Ted Lasso episode 6 of this season 2 when Keeley's slipping into their bath, and you can see some right slippage there, and
it's side boob, right? Isn't that the term in Family Guy?
Yeah, side boob, yes. Yeah, so but there was a funny moment about the whole Ratatouille as a masterpiece, and we've had recent discussions on the channel here about what is considered a masterpiece.
I consider Ratatouille a masterpiece. I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty great movie overall. It's an innocent movie, and it's kind of like Keeley says, who cares? Like, if Ratatouille is his favorite episode, just go with it. But next episode should be pretty interesting, considering the title, Man City, for the semifinal. Yep. So I think that episode is going to be a bounce back episode from this. I think it's going to have a lot of importance. I think it's going to have tension. I think it's going to be involve some stress, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how the coaches and the players handle all the stress. I really hope this might sound bad, but I really hope it's super tense, and that we as an audience and viewers actually have this anxiety while we're watching it. Like,
it's gonna happen. It's clear, like, me like looking from the writing lens at this, like, this is their episode. Like, there's no way they haven't been building to this specific plot point. And that's maybe why we got this kind of filler episode here, is because they needed to get all the plot points kind of arranged in the right spot for this moment to like explode. I just felt like it was maybe a little bit clumsy how they got there.
Yeah. So what would you think the rating of this episode deserves?
Oh God. I will say, like, I think the acting, production, character development, everything gives it a high floor every week. There's always going to be good Roy moments and stuff like that. But to me, like, this just didn't hit in the right ways at all. I'm giving it a 6, which is my lowest of the whole season. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's just like
compared to it's definitely, I think, the weakest.
Not up to par.
Yeah, I think it's the weakest episode so far in this season.
Maybe in the series, honestly. It might be one of the weaker ones of the entire series.
Yeah, you might be right. I'd have to go back and watch season 1 again and see which ones just didn't really handle that well. But yeah, I was thinking like a 6.5. Again, kind of giving a little bit of the benefit of the doubt concerning everything, the whether it's production, the lines, the The themes, obviously acting is always usually great from everyone, and more Roy Kent the better. That just jacks up my rating.
Right, same. Like whenever there's good Roy moments, I'm always going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
but
it's not
grand
like
scheme of things. It feels like it's kind of plodding along.
Yeah, like it doesn't really hit on that like 8 or higher level for me, especially when again we've been. I think the last couple episodes since the Christmas one have been like
great.
9s, 8.5s. This is just it falls short.
It's hard to have a stumble like that. Like after the prior 2 episodes, I really thought they were getting going. Yeah. And then they have this one, and it's a mess.
I think next episode will definitely be a bounce back episode.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. And like I'm looking at this too from a lens of like an average audience. Like we're the type of people that like we overanalyze and we talk about all this stuff all the time, and like we really track these character arcs, but most audiences aren't really interested in that as much. They need a good like pacing momentum throughout the season. So like I could totally see this episode being one where they lose a lot of people, where it's like finally we're getting somewhere, and then no, we're not. It's just like it's a lot of that. It's a lot of like building up tension and then like doesn't resolve it. Like the Nate thing is a perfect example. We have this entire episode where he solves his problem and then goes right back into the old problem. It's like, what did we just spend 30 minutes doing?
Yeah, not resolving the insecurities that Nate has, and same thing with Ted, right? Like
exact same thing. Like we talked last week, it was like I want a no time gap. What is Ted saying to the doctor? So we don't get that. And not only do we not get that, but then he refuses therapy the entire episode until the end, and then he finally agrees somewhat to it, and we don't see it. It's like, why has this not been the build-up this entire time? Anyways, I'm angry.
So I
don't
think,
like him when he's angry.
Yeah, right. The Roy Kent row. I had a shirt that was going to be special for Roy Kent, but I was angry that it didn't fit me because, muscles and all that stuff. So I have to get a size larger, unfortunately. But, for a special occasion, it'll happen and show up, and I'll wear it for one of these videos for us. But I think that'll probably do it. I'm sure next week, again, anticipating the bounce back, the higher ratings from all of us.
Yep.
And
I'd be interested to see if this episode, this video does better in terms of like comments and views, just because I think people are also frustrated with it. So if you're also frustrated, like definitely let us know. Because I think like I don't want to sound like I'm crazy, but like I've talked to a couple of other people about this, and like they're really starting to lose steam on it after this week. So hopefully we get a little redemption.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what people think. So if you're watching this and have made it this far, what has made you uncomfortable, or maybe lose a little steam with this episode? Have that conversation with us. Let us know what your rating would be.
Yeah, maybe we're crazy. Maybe everyone loves this, and maybe
people like the uncomfortableness.
Picky.
Yeah, maybe you thought that the easy resolutions, the unresolved works for you. And listen, if that's the case, that's totally fine. I just hope that the following episodes have a little bit more sustenance to them, and the ongoing plots that we're continuing to get. So if you are new to the channel, do us a favor, help support us, share with your friends, hit that like and subscribe button for free, become a part of our Heroes community here. Go ahead and turn on the bell for all of our future notifications and content. And from your friend here, Roy Kent and Shane, tune into the next video. We got a lot coming out this week. Cheers.